Hey, folks, I wanted to do a video regarding a timeline of strange events, and a lot of this is still a mystery to me. And I want to discuss two stories related to me specifically and my team. And I think that you're going to find a lot of this stuff very interesting. As I've said before, I've been in the chase since roughly late 2014. And of course, right now, I'm still active in the community. I emailed Forrest Fenn pretty frequently, and I would estimate that maybe he replied 20% of the time. He never, with one exception, and I'm going to tell you about that exception, he never discussed any solutions with me. We just had just things that we would talk about. So that was most of the time when he would reply. I never met Forrest in person. I never went to his house. I never even been to Santa Fe. And in the chase, probably I'd say 99% of my search was always in Wyoming. I mean, I knew it had to be in Wyoming. That's where I focused on. I went out boots on the ground 4 times to Wyoming. And then eventually in 2017, I picked up a partner that lives in Wyoming, and he was kind of assisting me and I was assisting him with himself. So he would go boots on the ground for me. So that was really good because I can't afford to go boots on the ground. I mean, I don't have the kind of money. Basically, you're talking about $1,000 each time I would go. And that's just, I couldn't afford it. I mean, I'm disabled. I don't have I have a fixed income. And I'm certainly not rich. But anyway, that's basically my search story. Now, in 2016 through 2018, which was the same time I was beginning to become really active on Dow's site. And I never posted on Chase Chat, but on Dow's site. And then eventually on Jenny when she created her forums. And I discussed the wheel, and I discussed Lander, and just various topics in the chase where I would do different analysis of things, and I would just give my perspective on it, right? Because I teamed up with Sam back in 2016 for a short while, and then we ended up parting ways on good terms. We parted ways because he told me about the try to wheel stuff. And basically what happened was I said, it sounds good, but I want I want you to prove to me where the poem tells you to do all of that. And basically Sam said, well, the first stanza is defining the keyword treasures, and then you're using the poem to spell out that word, and then it reveals a message, right? And I said, okay, well, when you're choosing the letters from the words in stanza 3, could you tell me specifically what made you choose those words? And he really couldn't do it. And I started reading the poem, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be more to this. And I would investigate it more. And that kind of annoyed Sam because it would look like I didn't believe him. But that wasn't the case at all. I just like to kind of prove things. I don't want to just take somebody's word for it, that this is the way it works. And it was also interesting because what made me connect with Sam was that I kind of came to the same conclusion as him. I didn't reveal the secret message, but I knew that the poem had something to do with reading it and paying close attention and doing precisely what it says within the poem itself. So in other words, I knew all of the places you mentioned can't be found on a map. They're all fictitious. They only exist in the poem. What I started doing was drawing in the poem. Like when it said begin at where one more salt, I would put my pen down and I would draw a line straight down from the end of that line below the T. And I got down to the home of Brown. It said put in below it. So I would move my pen to the left. And then it said from there. So I would go through there and so on. In other words, I was drawing as if it was a map, and I was following the instructions and drawing right on the poem itself. And I told that to Sam. And eventually Sam and I ended up hooking up. And when he showed me the message, I'm like, wow, we arrived at the same place 2 different ways, but I never seen the message. So anyway, I complained to Forrest Fenn that Dow's website sucks. And I CC'd Dow when I emailed Forrest, and I said, I didn't just say it sucks. I explained why. And I said, we're trying to have, and he, I imagine he's seen these conversations on Dow's. I said, I'm trying to have a good discussion about this. But the problem is that Dow broke everything up into clues instead of breaking everything up in stanzas. And that was when I was talking about the fact that the water is the subject for halt and take and blah, blah, blah. But it was really hard to have a good discussion on Dallas because there's no threading. In other words, you can't look at a thread that I would begin and then follow it and see all of the replies. It ends up being scattered through 9 different forums because Dow would delete your post if you were talking about like warm water salt and you mentioned Homer Brown. Now he didn't like that, so that goofball or whatever his name was would delete it. It was just really annoying, and I complained to Forrest and said, I don't know why you didn't start a forum, because Dow is not doing it right. And I said it's not conducive to good discussion. Forrest Fenn actually agreed with me, right? So then about 3 weeks later, all of a sudden, bam, Jenny has these forums. And I replied to Forrest and I said, wow, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, but thanks. I said, we needed a place like this with a good forum software. So he replied back to me and he goes, yeah, but help Jenny get it going, get some people there and get some activity going. And he said, let's all try to keep this into a nice place instead of turning it into another chase chat, because he was annoyed at what was going on. This happened to be the same time that Chase Chat was accusing him of being a pedophile and all kinds of nasty stuff, right? So I did that. I went on Jenny's and I started posting a lot and all of my stuff, and I started attracting a lot of attention. And of course, along with that, especially when you're discussing stuff that could be controversial, uh, it generates arguments, right? And Jenny is she's a really kind and I guess a meek person, right? And she just it doesn't work with her, right? So she complained to me that some of the other posters were complaining that I'm doing too much posting. So she said that she was going to ban me from the board, which she did. And then she told me that I'm welcome to come back, but I can't use the name. Why must I go? Because she wanted to kind of remove the association. And I basically told her no. I said, I'm not going to do that. I post this whoever I want to post. I'm not going to change who I am. And I just won't post there at all. And then I told her, go through and delete every post that I made, because you're not going to be able to use my content in order to help boost the ranking of your site. I want it gone, right? I was ranked so high, just to give you an idea, that if you went into Google and typed in Forrest Fenn, Wyoming, or anything to do with that, the very first 3 or 4 things that would come up in Google was why must I go, right? So, I mean, that's actually how I ended up meeting my partner, which was interesting, right? I mean, he sent me a private message on Jenny's, and that's how I ended up meeting him. So it worked out good for that reason. But I went back to Forrest and I said, it's just not working out. She banned me. I think it was May of 2017, and I still wanted a place to talk, and that's why I made my Facebook group. And in the Facebook groups, I was involved in one with Janet Langard, okay, and Charles Chapman. Janet Langard is an old movie star from the 60s. Anyway, she's the one that actually suggested that you should create it, because I started posting in that group, and of course the arguments would come. Oh, try the wheel, or no, stanza 2 is telling you to go down the canyon, and it was just getting really frustrating. So she told me, well, why don't you create the YouTube channel? And I did. I created it in February of 2018. I created it 2 months after YouTube changed the guidelines. YouTube, it only used to require 500 subscribers in order to be able to do super chats and monetize your channel. They changed it to 1,000. But I still created the channel anyway, because I'm not really concerned about building a following and doing super chats. And I'm not in the game to make money like that. So I wasn't interested in it. But what Janet told me is, you should at least put up a PayPal thing so that people could donate. And I did after she suggested it. And I think over the years, I probably got $100 total donations. People don't necessarily donate to that stuff. So yeah, I made a big $90 out of the chase, right? Of course, I spent thousands of dollars, but I made $90. Anyway, The channel was a place where I can do what I want to do and nobody's going to tell me what to do. If I want to discuss something, I'm going to discuss it and I'm going to put it out there. And I'm kind of a visual guy. So the media of using video works out a lot better than posting because a lot of times you can't get your post across. You can't get your idea across in text, especially when you're not really articulate and a good writer, which is me. I'm not a good writer and I'm not that articulate. So, but anyway, it worked out good, right? Forrest Fenn, like I said, he only replied maybe 20% of the time. Now I'm up here. And 2016 through 2018 is when he was responding the most. Now, I told you that he never discussed Saab. There's one exception to that. In 2017, I don't want to mention her name, but somebody that's well known in the chase community, and no, it's not Cynthia or any of them. She's been searching way longer than even Cynthia, and she knows Forrest Fenn better than Cynthia. Anyway, her and her son went out boots on the ground for me to Wyoming, and this was just like right around the same time that I picked up my partner. My partner was away on business. So basically, she went out to Wyoming and she agreed with my Saab. And we were going to split it 50-50, so on, right? So she went there and we got some boots on the ground footage and everything. And I sent Forrest Fenn an email and I'm like, look, we're boots on the ground. And I said, of course, I believe in this Saab. I want to ask you one question. I don't care about my Saab, but was the treasure chest ever at this location? And I sent him exact coordinates and pictures of where we were. So, in other words, it wasn't like I was emailing Forrest and saying, hey, here's a Saab. Is it there? No, we actually put forth the effort and went there, right? And this is kind of funny and maybe not to Forrest, but I accidentally emailed him a video file of the boots on the ground. And it filled his email box. He wasn't too happy about that. But I mean, I felt so bad. I said, oh, man, I'm really sorry. I only did. Now, he knew this person very well. And that was one of the reasons why I sent that, because I was concerned with their safety, because we've heard a lot of crazy things in this chase. People that were going to, shoot somebody in the back if it came neck and neck and all this crazy stuff. But anyway, we didn't find the chest. And Forrest Fenn got back to me and he replied. He said, first thing he said is, where's your warm water salt? And I told him. And then he replied back. He says, well, what makes the warm water salt there? And then I told him. And then he replied back and he goes, well, Troy, look around you. Do you see any mountains? I replied back and I said, yeah, I see mountains here. And I see the Wind River Mountains. I see the Owl Creek Mountains. I said, there's mountains over here they're gone now. I was near the Lucky MC mine. It's not technically in the mountains. It was above 5,000 feet, right? It met all the requirements, but it wasn't physically in a mountain, right? So, that's the point he was trying to make. So he comes back and he replies, no, Troy, you're in a desert. I mean, I don't know why I did this, but I replied back, no, Forrest. I said, the only desert in Wyoming is the Red Desert. This is not desert. It's arid plains. It's arid plains. I said, I see mountains. I said, please just tell me, was the chest ever there? That's all I want to know. I don't want to know if my Saab is right or wrong. I'm not trying to get any hints, but just tell me, this location where we are standing, was the chest ever there? He didn't reply to me. But the very next day on Jenny's, he posted that comment where he made about, it was unrelated to this, but then inside that comment, he said, and by the way, if your Saab is in the desert, get a new Saab. In other words, that he was obviously talking to me. So I was kind of the one that initiated this. It's not in the desert thing, right? And I guess he said that out loud on Jenny's so that it wasn't giving me any information. Because for me, immediately, that ruled out all of that area around Hell's Half Acre, Castle Gardens, anywhere that was not physically in a mountain. So it ruled out quite a huge swath of area. That was what triggered that. That was the only time he sort of discussed any Saab with me, right? Now, fast forward to 2019. This is roughly a year after Ramblin' Pam did her video about the Cody Museum. And she discussed the Joseph Henry Sharp cabin that's in there that Forrest Fenn donated. It used to be on the Crow Reservation, just above the Bighorn Mountains. Okay, right at the confluence of the Little Bighorn and the Bighorn Rivers. All right, I know exactly where it was, and I have a video about it. But anyway, Forrest Fenn had it moved. He bought it, had it moved from the reservation all the way down to Cody by truck, and they put it in the museum, right? And Forrest Fenn has that. That's his exhibit in the Cody Museum. But then he's got a couple more. Okay, he's got a sack of gold dust in there, and he's got I think a couple of other things. I don't remember. So those are his exhibits in the museum. And I never believed that the treasure chest was there, but I did believe there was hints in that museum. I can tell you one of them, for example, the picture of the Axeman with the bird up on the moon. That's actually a crow. And if you go to the cabin, the Joseph Henry Sharp's cabin, you'll see a blue casting of that crow. And that was Joseph Henry Sharp's one of his favorite art pieces that he had in the cabin. And he always kept it by him. And the reason why he kept it by him is he liked two things. He liked Crow Indians. Okay. That's what he was hired or commissioned for by the United States government, to paint the crow. And that's what he did. And now the manufacturer was like Rockwell or Rockwood or something like that. The same manufacturer for the furniture. They were from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. Well, so was the guy that made the crow. And Joseph Henry Sharp did a lot of work in Philadelphia, right? So Joseph Henry Sharp loved two things. He liked Philadelphia, and he also liked the Crow Indians. So he kept that crow always in there. And if you go into Forrest Fenn's exhibit, you're going to find that crow, and when it's out on display, it's out on top of a wooden shelf that's right by Joseph Henry Sharp's desk in the cabin. So anyway, we wanted to go there and we wanted to get in the cabin. I wanted to go in the cabin and I wanted to be able to examine everything up close. Joseph Henry Sharp's desk. And also there's a trap door under Joseph Henry Sharp's desk. It's actually an access panel, we found out later, to get to the air conditioning system that's under, it's in the back of the cabin, but the ductwork is under the cabin to control the moisture levels and stuff so that the thing doesn't rot, basically. I knew the air conditioner was there because you could see it. And I figured the ductwork was underground. But anyway, I wanted to go and look. I wanted to. I thought that the hammer was in there, and I wanted to just see it. I wanted to just see it myself. Like Forrest Fenn always said, he doesn't like having things hidden in a museum. He likes to be able to touch. So here he has an exhibit, and as soon as I walk into the exhibit, I'm surrounded by glass walls and I can't get into the cabin. And I kind of joke with Forrest. I'm like, what's up with the hypocrisy? Why would you, say that? And then in your own exhibit, we can't go in there. So I said, I understand you wouldn't want people to be able to walk in there and destroy the place. But I said, I would like to go in there and work with somebody in the museum could bring me in there, a curator or one of the museum employees. Because I researched pictures and I know they've let other people inside that cabin. They have pictures of it on the website of a pottery person that was in there looking at the pottery. So they've done it, no big deal. And I figured that I told Forrest, I said, if I go there, be ready to get a phone call because I'm going to request that I get permission from you to go in there. Now, anytime you want to get to review Forrest Fenn's documents, because all the information he has from Joseph Henry Sharp is in the McCracken Research Center, right? And if you want to go there and see that stuff, you have to get permission, right? And then you have to set up an appointment, actually. So this is not unusual, right, for the museum to do this. That's what they do with all their exhibits. In fact, you can make up an appointment for them and go into the firearms museum and actually take guns out of the display and look at them up close. It will do that by appointment, right? So that's why they have these employees there and curators and all of that. That's their job, essentially, to help with the exhibits, right? So anyway, we went there and we found out that the curator wasn't there. So we talked to the curator's assistant. And the curator's assistant told us that, but they couldn't let him in unless the curator was there and blah, blah, blah. So we mentioned to her about the hammer and stuff like that. And she said, "Oh yeah, the hammer's under the trap door. That's under Joseph Henry Sharp's cabin. I mean, under Joseph Henry Sharp's desk. That's an access panel to the air conditioning ductwork, and the hammer's down there." So I replied back to Forrest and I said, "Yeah, they told me the hammer's in there, but it's under that access panel." And Forrest Fenn replied back to me and he goes, "Whoa." He goes, I was thinking about doing a scrapbook about this. Could you do me a favor and let me know anything that you find out about the hammer? Because he said, my memory, he said, I went there after we put the cabin there, and I went in there and I noticed that the hammer wasn't there, and it locked up in one of the rooms. And he goes, part of the deal of giving them a cabin was that the hammer, when it was discovered, because they discovered the hammer under the foundation when they picked up the place as when it sat in the Indian reservation. So when it was moved to Cody, Forrest Fenn wanted to make sure that the hammer remained under the foundation. That was part of the deal. And when he went there, he was kind of annoyed because it wasn't under the foundation. It was in the museum. So he went with the curator. I don't know who it was, but he went with them. And I imagine this is like 1987, 1988, a long time ago, right? Right after the cabin went in there. So he went with the curator. They went outside with the hammer. And he said, the way I remember it is you dug a hole on the side of the foundation, and I reached down and put the hammer under the foundation from that hole. And then we filled the hole in. And that was that. He said, I don't remember it being in the access panel. So he goes, if you find anything out, let me know. So that's what I went back and I found out, yeah, they moved it under the access panel and stuff like that. And I told them that the curator wouldn't let us go in there and stuff like that. Now, the curator, obviously, she was new and she's young, in her 30s, millennial, right? So anyway, I'm sure she's aware of the history of Forrest and that hammer. So I guess the way she interpreted it was, they're going to get me in trouble because now Forrest Fenn's pissed off that the hammer was moved. None of that stuff really happened. And the other thing that was going on at the same time was that Eugene was there with Cynthia. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but she was not a Wyoming searcher at all, right? She was in New Mexico 99% of the time, right? So around 2018, late maybe, or 2019 is when she started going to Wyoming. And Eugene has been in Wyoming all this time too, just like me. So Eugene was kind of just like showing her around, let's say, right? So all these people, and it's besides us, there's other searchers that would go there. And I guess that this woman was frustrated because she didn't like all these searchers going to the Cody Museum. So that's why Forrest Fenn put that thing out there. The chest is not in the Cody Museum. Well, I know that at least one person, well, Eugene himself, believed and still believes, I think, that the hammer is on the museum's property. And that's why Forrest Fenn put that out there. It's declared, in other words, saying, stay the hell away from the museum. It's not there. And then I replied to Forrest Fenn again after she put that message there. And I said, what's going on? I said, look, now these people don't like me. I said, I never even been to Cody. And I said, my partner was there, right? And I said, but they know my partner. He does work for the museum. And I said, we never, like, we were only there one time, right? This was the one time. I was never there. I didn't live at the museum like other searchers that Eugene, for example. He goes there quite often because he loves the place, right? And they're just extremely frustrated with it. They're extremely frustrated with searchers that were going to locations in the area around Cody, and they were just pestering him, I guess. And I thought it was kind of ironic because that's Karen's job, to work at the museum. That's her job. Forrest Fenn is attracting people to the museum. That's good. Why on earth would a curator complain about doing her job? I don't know, right? Certainly, I have no idea what Eugene does and what kind of stuff Cynthia were doing, but somebody really pissed those people off. So anyhow, that's why Scrapbook 207 came out about the hammer, and I kind of helped Forrest with that. So that's happening then, right? So I told Forrest Fenn, I said, this museum thing, I said, I'm getting really frustrated with the chase. I said, I'm getting banned on boards. I can't have a discussion with anybody. Nobody wants to really discuss the poem and look at things deep. I said, I think I had it. I said, I'm going to go back in 2020. I said, I got like one or two other places I'm going to try. And I said, that's it. If I don't find it in 2020, it's over for me. I said, at that point, I'm just going to say, you beat me, Forrest. I can't find it. About 2 or 3 weeks after that happened, I was contacted by Sam, and Sam said, hey, Troy, would you like to team up again? And he goes, I know you now have a partner in Wyoming. And he goes, as you know, I can't travel. He said, I've been doing more work on the wheel saw, and I found a couple locations. Could you ask your partner if we'll team up? My partner agreed. So we teamed up with Sam again. I looked at Sam's spot, and I looked more at his saw, and I reviewed all my stuff. And in late December, we agreed that we were going to team up again, and it was going to be done at the wheel. And that was it. That's kind of our last stand, right? If it's not at the wheel or where we think it is at the wheel, we're done. We've run out of options at this point. It's just too much work, right? We're done. I didn't tell Sam this because I didn't want to annoy him, but as I said before, one of the difficulties in working with Sam is that I'm like an analysis type guy, and he's a higher level guy, and he was stuck that that there's no need to analyze the poem anymore. I'm telling you how it works, and I'm not like that. I like to prove why is it working. I want to be able to back it up. I don't want to just sit there and say, well, this is how it works. That's because that's the way I said. No, I want to be able to go through there and analyze the poem and say, okay, yes, stanza 1 is telling me this. Stanza 2 is telling me to do that, right? So I worked all of that stuff out. But I still didn't agree with Sam's spots that he found. I said, I think it's by the wheel, but I don't think it's there. I said, so I think it's called, there's a Crystal Springs right at the base of where you turn off to go to the wheel, and then Five Springs. I already ruled out Porcupine Falls, Bucking Mule, and any other place around there. So it was going to be Five Springs or Crystal Creek. But I told Forrest Fenn, I said, look, I'm gonna work it out, and I did work it out all the way from January 2020 to roughly May 15th, right, 2020. Well, I sent a couple of emails to Forrest, and I nailed down, and I mentioned Five Springs, right, and Crystal Creek. And I told them that we're going to go to Sam Spots first, and then Five Springs probably a week later, because we don't know. We want to rule out Sam Spots first, because those are the easy ones. Just go to the wheel, and that was that. Now, those of you that don't know, you can't go to the wheel until after Memorial Day. So we set up. I told Forrest Fenn, look, my wedding anniversary is June 6th, my 39th wedding anniversary. When my partner went out, he used to tell me, I'm going on this day. So I told my partner, this time, let's do something different. It's our last time. I said, surprise me and go out. And I said, go out and find it. I said, then let me know on June 6th that you found it. And that's my wedding anniversary. That'd be an awesome present, right? So on May 17th, and I already discussed this before, I'm not going to get into it too deep. Forrest Fenn cut me off saying not to email him anymore. And it was really weird the way he did it, because he wrote an entire paragraph. Not only did he write an entire paragraph, he repeated himself in there. I hope you understand. And then he said something. Just too much of a burden for me. And then he said, I really hope you understand. So he used hope you understand twice. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen all my videos, but that's how Forrest Fenn gave hints in the book. He would repeat a phrase, and somewhere sandwiched in the middle was some kind of a hint. But I didn't pay no mind to that. I never thought that he was giving me a hint. I'm just like, okay, it's just too much of a burden. I'm, whatever. It's late in the chase. The guy gets, millions of emails. He's probably tired of it. Right? So then the very next day, on May 18th, Forrest Fenn comes out with the toe-to-toe contest on Dow's website. Toe-to-toe, head-to-head means there's a race. And it means people are neck and neck, right? I looked at that, and then I said, all right. I said, there's a chance maybe I'm close, and Forrest Fenn is just cutting off communications with anybody that's close, because he knows that there's at least a handful of people, or at least two groups, that are kind of honing in on where the chest is. So he's cutting off communication because he wants to be sure that nobody gets an advantage. So June 6th arrives. Forrest Fenn announces chase is over. Found under a canopy of stars in the lush forest vegetation of the Rocky Mountains. by a man from back east. Now, in the emails that I sent Forrest, and some of the videos you guys have seen, I always bragged about being from back east, about the home that we had on the beach, and I said, "You love the mountains, Forrest." I said, "The beach was my place." I said, "I'm an East Coast guy," and I told him, I said, "Man," I said, "when I was growing up as a teenager, that's where the girls were, that's where we went," and I says, "It was all about the beach, right?" And I joked with him about that a lot. So he knew where I was from. He knew actually that I was from New Jersey, right? And and I kind of told him, I said, "That's why I have this accent when I talk." Anyway, it was kind of like a joke between us. And I looked at that and I said, "Holy shit." I mean, now I don't know how many of you know, but the medicine wheel is specifically there for the Plains Indians to go to look at the stars. And it takes a couple of constellations, okay? Taurus, it takes the brightest star in Taurus, takes the brightest star in Orion Hunter, and then Orion Hunter's dog and the southern fish. And of course, the sun is our star, right? So that the whole wheel is where you would go to look at the stars. That's the whole purpose of it, right? It's 12,000 years old. And when you go there and read about it, the whole darn point of the place is the stars and viewing the stars. I called my partner on June 6th, no reply, no answer. He didn't answer the phone, right? I finally got in contact with him on June 7th, and he said, sadly, Troy, he goes, "I didn't get a chance to go yet." He goes, "I was planning to go later this week." And I said, "Shit." I said, "Look, Forrest Fenn announced that it was found, but he didn't put a picture out there." So I said, "There's a chance that Forrest is buying somebody time. He knows there's, let's say, 4 or 5 people going after this thing, and he's going to call off the chase and give them a shot to go get it without any other searchers looking anymore, right? Just give them a couple days, right?" So I said, "Go there, go there." So my partner said, "All right, there's a baseball game in Lovell." Now he's a baseball coach, so he goes, "I got to go to Lovell anyway." So he goes, "I'll go on the 8th." And it was funny because he's like, "When's that?" And I said, "Tomorrow." So he goes, "Okay, I'll go there tomorrow." Right. So June 8th, he's there. He's boots on the ground. He calls me and he's good because he always did. He goes, "I'm currently, about 5 miles away from Lovell and blah, blah, blah." I got there. He had his kids in the car. This whole thing was an experience. And I used to tell Forrest Fenn about it. Whenever he went, he would have his kids in the car. And it was almost like we were going on this big adventure. And what he would do is I would call and they would be in the truck and I would explain to them the solve to his kids, and I would do it like kind of in a layman's terms way. I wouldn't get into details, but I would kind of make it sound interesting, like I was telling the story, and it really piqued their interest. And believe it or not, even though they lived in Wyoming, his children they were never at places like the Wheel. Of course, they've been to other places, but they never been around. And my partner even had a discussion about that. He said, "If it wasn't for you," well, he said 2 things. One, he goes, "You probably know more about Wyoming than me." And he goes, "I'm third generation in Wyoming. I have relatives here in the 1800s." So he said, "We've been here for a long time, right?" But he said, "You probably know more about me." He goes, "But furthermore," he goes, my kids, and he said that a lot of them would have never seen a lot of the sites that you've been sending us to, even though we live here. So he goes, it's really cool, right?" So I said, "Yeah, I mean, that's great." And believe me, he went out. I went boots on the ground 4 times in Wyoming, and I think this man went out 20 times for me, at least, all over the place. I mean, he went to Cody, he went up to just outside Yellowstone by the Bahaska Teepee, up by the ski resort. He went to Louis Lake. He went to Six Canyon, Lucky MC Mine. He went to Meadowlark Lake up in the Bighorns. I mean, all over the place this guy went, right? And mostly it was close to him, except when he had to drive to Cody. Cody was like a 4-hour drive. So if he would go up to, let's say, the ski resort, you're talking about a whole day because it takes him 4 hours to get there, 4 hours to get back. That's 8 hours. And then to look around, you're talking about another 4 hours. But he was kind of smart about it. What he would do is he would go and he was bringing his whole family there, and they went like zip lining, for example, because it was the summertime. So they would make a family day out of it. So anyway, I told them, when you go there, don't tell me that you're going. Just surprise me and go on June 6th. And I said, damn. I said, I thought that you found it. He didn't. So he was still going back on June 8th. So he goes out on June 8th. Now here's where things get interesting. As soon as I got off the phone with him, about 2 hours later, I get a PayPal donation from the finder, quote unquote. What I did is I went and I looked at the PayPal, and when you send somebody a donation, it gives the email address. So I don't know their name or any of their personal details, but I knew his email. So I emailed him, and I said, look, why did you send me that? Because think about it. Why would somebody send me an email saying I'm the finder and we used your SOB? Basically, he said, I seen your SOB in 2018 and I decided to run with it. And he said, here we are 2 years later. And he goes, I solved the ending. He goes, but I just want to let you know that you did like 90% of the work, but I want to get credit for the ending. Right. So he goes, I'm not going to tell you all the details about where it was. Right. And he told me that he was going to go back there to wrap things up. And he mentioned, and remember this now, he mentioned June 16th that he was going back on June 16th. Now, it was June 8th when he told me that. So I'm going back on June 16th, right? So I'm like, all right, that's cool. And he said, by the way, I'll give you a hint. He said, look closer at the bench. And I knew which bench he's talking about because I did discussions of it in the past. It's the bench with Hammond Wise and Francis Brown and Charles Brady. That's sitting right above the crossroads of culture, looking down into where Warm Waters Hall, right? That's basically the bench. So he goes, you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. But he goes, meanwhile, after I go there on June 16th, I'll tell you more. I got off the phone and I immediately knew what he was talking about. So I got on the phone with my partner. My partner said, we just left the wheel and we're almost at level. And I told him what happened. He goes, call the guy back. He goes, see if he wants me to pick him up on June 16th, and I'll help him. And I did that. I went back. I emailed the guy. The guy gave me his phone number, and he actually agreed to meet with my partner in Level, and then my partner would take him up there. So he agreed to do that. Unfortunately, that didn't work out because, long story short, my partner had his sister-in-law passed away, and he had to go to Colorado. So that was that. He couldn't go. So I contacted this other guy back again, and I said, my partner can't meet you there. So this guy said, well, I'm still going on June 16th, and, and I'll let you know when I'm there. So fast forward to June 16th. I get a call, and this guy calls me, and he says, I'm there. I'm just about in Level. This was roughly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess. Might have been 2 o'clock Wyoming time. I don't remember. So, in other words, in Santa Fe, it was roughly the same time. And Santa Fe is in the same time zone. So we're talking about very early in the afternoon on June 16th. So he calls me up and he says, look, it looks like there might be rain in the mountains today, so I'm not going to go up in the Bighorns. So, and I of course didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, oh, whatever. We already knew the chase was over, but we don't have any pictures. So anyway, I don't know anything. So he goes, whatever. He goes, I'll call you. I'll let you know what happens. Right. So we get off the phone. About 8 hours later, 9 hours later, bam, same day, June 16th, right after I got off the phone with this guy right here. June 16th, Forrest Fenn posts the first picture of the chest taken sometime after it was found. I was like, holy crap. I'm like, what's going on here? The guy tells me ahead of time the date of June 16th, and then he's there on June 16th. I call him, I know that. And that night, Forrest Fenn posts first picture of the chest. I'm like, holy crap. When I called my partner back, I told him, I said, by the way, he gave me a hint. Look at the bench. I said, I did that. And I said, look, I know exactly where it is. And my partner said, well, if you want, this is before he told me to work out a deal with the guy. He goes, I'll go up there and we'll go get it right now. And I said, you know what? I said, don't do that. And he goes, why? He goes, I'm right here. I could do it. And I said, because let me look at this logically. I said, You went there today and you checked Sam's spots, right? And he said, yep. I said, you proved that it wasn't at any of Sam's spots, right? He said, yep. I said, so if this guy is being legitimate, he found it on June 6th, then he legitimately beat us to it. It's not my chest. And I said, furthermore, he was kind enough to contact me and let me know he's the finder. So I said, he didn't have to do that. Why would somebody do that? They could just never email me at all. It wasn't like the guy was trying to rub it in because he called me like the day after it was announced found. There's no reason why somebody would do that, right? Go through the trouble of donating money and then getting a phone number. It could be a throwaway cell phone, right? You don't know. And then contact. Why would somebody go through all that trouble? I came out with a video saying congratulations to the finder. I wasn't mad. So why would this guy do that? I knew from my partner that he didn't go. So I knew I wasn't the finder on June 6th. So I'm like, let's give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's for real. If he really is the finder, he already said that he would, he's not concerned about the money and stuff like that. He would have no problem splitting it down the road. But he was mainly concerned that he was the finder, quote unquote. He was the one who solved the ending, right? And I'm fine with that. So my partner, he goes, that's really a nice thing for you to do. And I said, yeah, because I'm not a dick. I'm not going to go ahead and take something that's rightfully somebody else's. So I said, let's just roll with it, see what happens. So that same day, the next day, it might have been the 17th. I might be wrong here. On June 17th, I did a video and I announced that I believe it was at Five Springs. And I showed where I believe it was, and I kind of give the solve. Right? I don't go into depth on it, but I give it the information. You can look on my channel. You'll see the video. It's either June 16th or the 17th. I don't remember, right? Then on June 21st, I did a live stream and I showed details of where it is in Five Springs, why it's there, how the poem is solved, where the location is, the whole thing, right? On June 21st. Then comes July 22nd. Now remember, up to this point, we don't know who Jack is. All Forrest Fenn said is it's under a canopy of stars in the lush forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains, and it was found by a man from back east who wants to remain anonymous. That's all we knew. We didn't know Jack. We didn't know the state. We didn't know anything. So I came out with the videos, and I said it was at Five Springs before we even knew anything about Wyoming. I mean, I'm so sure of that spot. And I'm not even going to get into it anymore. Just go look at my countless videos about it. But I'm positive it was there. I don't give a crap if anybody comes out and says that it was in Yellowstone. Then I would probably turn into one of the conspiracy people and say it was moved, because there is no way that it wasn't at Five Springs. Anyhow, July 22nd, Forrest Fenn comes out and he announces that it was found in the state of Wyoming. Right there, I knew. I'm like, okay, it had to be at Five Springs. Now we got even more confirmation, right? So what happened about a couple of weeks later, right? Well, they did the Zoom call with the Department of Interior, Forrest Fenn, and Jack. Right after Forrest Fenn announced that it was in Wyoming. That's why I'm telling you that the only reason why the National Park was involved is because the government already had so many arrests and deaths and complaints. They said it was in Wyoming. Well, you better get on the phone with these guys and find out where it was and make sure it was not in a place where it couldn't legally be. Because if it was, we're going to nail him to a cross. Right? Now, I believe Forrest Fenn had contact with them all the time, because when they had all those prior arrests, they were constantly emailing Forrest and saying, look, all this stuff is happening. And Forrest Fenn wanted to work with them and help them. So anyway, Forrest Fenn tells them, during the Zoom call, he gives them the exact location. Jack gives an exact location. The judge compares the two and they match. A week later, the ranger is done with her investigation and she says that it was on land owned by the United States government and managed by the Department of Interior. She didn't give any specifics of, was it BLM land, Indian land, national forest, national park, reservation, a reservoir, because the Department of Interior manages all public land, not just national forests. And like I said, the only reason why they involved the national park is because that's where all these lawsuits occurred, right? This is common sense, folks. You don't need to dig any deeper than that, in my opinion, right? So anyway, so now at this point, we still don't know who Jack is. We don't even know about this call because it was done in private. Nobody knew about that. It was all part of the lawsuits that were going on, right? Then comes September 7th, Forrest Fenn dies. 2 weeks later, on 9/23 is when the Medium article comes out from the finder, quote unquote. And we just still didn't know it was Jack, but we did know that it was in Wyoming. And then the finder leaves this really suspicious article out there, and everybody is debating it all over the internet, right? Month later, Peggy Fenn dies in October. All of a sudden in December, so what is that? 3 months later, Jack Stoof comes out and he says, I am the finder. Jack Stoof, the spoof writer from, I don't even remember which websites. But anyway, notice that Forrest Fenn is dead. Forrest Fenn died not knowing that Jack was going to come out. Forrest Fenn died not knowing the Medium article was going to come out, right? So Forrest Fenn, and keep in mind when we're talking about these pictures of the buried chest that are being dug up as a result of the Harry's lawsuit, Forrest Fenn didn't see any of those pictures released to the public. Whether or not he's seen them hasn't been proven by anybody because, as I said, until we do an email analysis, we don't know that that picture, that buried chest picture, was emailed by Jack to Forrest Fenn. And I don't care where that came from. I don't care if it came from, Harry himself or it came from Zoe or whatever. None of that stuff has been proven that picture was sent to Forrest. And McCracken or Harry comes out and he released that picture, but he doesn't provide any proof that it actually is a real document from the discovery. But either way, like I said, if you look at those pictures, they're so close up in the ground. That if they were real, and incidentally, Harry thinks they're all fake. I do too. But anyway, they're nondescript. In other words, if I showed somebody those pictures, it wouldn't give away the location. Certainly wouldn't give away the sob. There's no reason why Forrest wouldn't have put them out there. Why would he only put one of those pictures out there? And then on that picture, he's telling you that this was taken shortly after it was found. And then Jack said that the picture was taken in the same general area where he found it, but not specifically at that exact spot where the nook was that he got it from. So that picture that everybody's posting around of the one with the chest open, that did not come from the spot where the chest was, based on what Forrest Fenn said and based on what Jack said. Now, the picture that was the chest buried, Forrest Fenn never showed that picture. He was dead, right, when that came out. The only way we got that picture was from the guy that's suing Forrest Fenn, the state, because he believes Forrest Fenn is still alive. And Forrest Fenn really hid the chest in New Mexico, but he moved it somewhere else. Okay. And he also said that those pictures are fake. He believes. But he doesn't go and prove anywhere. Nobody does any analysis to actually show the header from the email to show really the signatures that are inside there. And they would validate the content of that email, and it would validate the to and from addresses. So you can be sure they weren't spoofed. You can tell. But you can't tell by looking at screenshots that McCracken put out there. That was my point in the last video. So there's so much stuff that's suspicious. I don't know what the heck is going on at this point. But that is the first thing that I want to tell you. If you look at these events, they're really strange. I mean, especially when Forrest Fenn cut me off on the email. I'm not sure why he would do that. I never had a problem with the guy. He just got done talking to me about the scrapbook 2000 or 207. I don't see any reason other than he was cutting me off because he was trying to make it fair, because he knew that more than one person was going there. So let's just say, for example, that the chest was near the wheel, right? And let's say Jack was looking near the wheel. And let's say this guy who sent me the PayPal donation was looking at the wheel, because I know he was. I came to find out that this guy was actually looking at Porcupine Falls. I don't believe it was there. And then I found two other people, and I'm going to get to that in the next story that I'm going to tell you. That we're also going there to the wheel. And all these people were supposed to go in June, July, at least 4 different teams that I know of. So if Forrest Fenn knew it, he probably cut off communication with all of them, Jack, me, and any of the other 2 people, because he doesn't want anybody to have an advantage. So his best bet is to shut up, move back up, don't accept any emails from any of them, and that's that. And then we'll see what happens. Somebody's going to get it. He knew that it was going to be found the week of June 6th somehow. I don't know. Now, somebody might say, well, what if your partner found it and he didn't tell you? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way in the world that would be the case. I trust that guy, and I have reasons for trusting him that I'm not going to get into here, but there's no way that that's the case. Not at all. Like I said, I'm going to discuss another one right now in the same video. So, but I wanted to put that. I'm curious what you guys would think about this. This is all one big coincidence here that this chain of events happened. I don't get it. I am from back east, and I know that Dave is not going to agree with that, but that's a load of crap. I've been talking to this man, Forrest Fenn, since 2014. He knows my voice. He knows how I talk. He knows how my attitude shows in my emails. And I hold nothing back, man. I got no filter when I'm in private. I don't care what other people think. Like Forrest to say, if you don't pay my bills, you have nothing to say to me. That's part of the reason why I thought that it was me. I no longer believe that, because I know that Jack came out, and I believe that Jack is the finder. And I believe that Jack is the one that's entitled to the chest. It's a hard thing for me to say, but it's the fact. The guy simply beat me to it. If it was at my spot, I'm not entitled to it. I don't seek the chest. I did put in an offer to bid on it, but I'm not trying to get it legally or anything. It's not mine. I didn't get it. The chase wasn't about solving the poem. You had to do 2 things. You had to solve the poem to the right location and then get the chest. And I didn't do the part 2. And I didn't even solve the poem until June 8th, 2 days after. As soon as that guy told me, he mentioned the bench, I knew it was at 5 Springs. And then, of course, on June 16th, I did a video saying it was at 5 Springs, which is before Forrest Fenn even said that it was in Wyoming. So Jack is the finder. So Dave incorrectly said that, Troy, doesn't believe that Jack's even the finder. Why are you being a hypocrite? No, I've said millions of times Jack's the finder. What I don't believe is that Jack solved the poem on his own. And that is also okay, because if it was at my spot, we put that information out there in public, knowing that somebody could do with this, right? We knew it. It's an accepted risk. We were trying to build a team. Unfortunately, the finder didn't team up with anybody, right? So he found it himself. But I'm not legally entitled to anything. Neither was Sam. None of us. If it was at my spot, there's no way I'm gonna let Jack. First of all, Jack has proven that he's the finder. As far as I'm concerned, he proved that he found the chest and he's the man entitled to it. But Jack never gave us a solve, and until he does, he's not the solver. Even if the location comes out, okay, and let's say by chance that it was the location that they come out with was in Yellowstone, I'm not going to buy it for a minute until Jack says it's solved. I don't care about the location. I want it solved, because it's going to be really interesting for him to try to prove any solve in Yellowstone with the poem. It's going to look, you're going to know right away that somebody's talking out their butt, because it just doesn't work, right? And I don't think that Jack even wants to get involved in that. That's why he's not going to give out the solve, because even though I told Jack, I promised him, I told him I'll sign the document saying that if you say that it was found at near the wheel, I'm not even going to try to sue you and try to recover it, because you are entitled to it. You are the finder. And I think that Jack's lawyer would advise him, your best bet is don't say anything. And unfortunately, that's why I believe we're never going to know where it was. Now, Jack answered one of my emails, and he did tell me that you're able to prove with just a poem, even though the chest is gone, you can come up with something that has enough evidence in it to prove where the chest was. He never explained what he meant by evidence, but that's what he said. And that's what I've been trying to do. That's the videos you've been seeing. So, like I said, there's no agenda. I'm not trying to claim that I'm entitled to the chest and I'm the solver. Clearly, if Jack solved the ending before me, then he would be the solver too, right? It's just that I don't believe for a minute, that Jack did this on his own. Not at all. Even if it wasn't at the wheel, no matter where it was, there is no way that he could come out and claim that he didn't use anything on the internet, that he didn't do any research. Everything was done by himself. Now, nobody, as far as I'm concerned, this Condor guy, there's no proof in that. That's all a bunch of BS on Reddit. Reddit, just so you guys know, is not really a place that's trustworthy. It's kind of like a Wikipedia. You've got essentially forums that are moderated by 20-year-old smart Alex that will ban you if you try to say anything or contradict anything. It's just basically a cesspool, in my opinion. That's why I don't really go on Reddit all that much. So you got to take everything you see on there with a grain of salt. I don't believe any of that crap. And the reason why is that's where I think these conspiracies originate, number one. And number two, these people that are on Reddit are mostly technically savvy. Okay. They could have pre-planned all of this after it was found on June 6th to go and try to do this. Matter of fact, the other conspiracy people that think Jack ain't real, maybe he did that on purpose to throw people off. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you one reason, if you keep watching this video, when I do the second part, I'm going to show you where there's a broken blaze and what Jack may have done. Because I do believe he did look in Yellowstone. I do believe that. I believe, though, that here's what happened. He went near the wheel because he seen my sob, number one. And number two, he seen me on Toby's channel because I went live on Toby's channel in 2018, which is the same time Jack got started. And we know that Jack watched Toby because he called into Toby. We've proven that, right? So if he proved that he's watching Toby, then he's up on YouTube, people. And I'm currently putting videos out there. Toby's putting videos out there. Calazar is putting videos out there. And all of those had at one point discussed the wheel. In 2018, the wheel was pretty big out there. So if it was at the wheel, Jack's seen it. Now, I believe that Jack looked at the wheel and he got spoofed by this blaze. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And he gave up on it. Then he decided to go on the low-hanging fruit. Let's go into Yellowstone. Then in sometime in 2019, he realized his mistake. And he's like, shit, it's back at the wheel. The hell am I doing in Yellowstone? So he left Yellowstone, went back to the wheel. He found out where it was. He solved the ending, and he knew that where he made a mistake at the blaze. So the only thing he had to do was brute force it, check it, almost like a grid. Because I don't believe he really knows the ending all that well. I know it better than him, in my opinion. So what he did is he kind of did like a grid search over a span of 25 days. Probably some of those days were in 2019, some were in 2020. And then he ultimately stumbled on it because he knew relatively where it had to be. And there's not that much area to search, technically, right? But it is time consuming and it's a pain in the neck to get there, get back. And that would explain for the 25 days. But Forrest Fenn never, ever, ever said that when you solve the poem, you're then going to need to spend 25 days wandering all around to locate the chest, looking under logs. He never said that. He said the poem will send you precisely to it, right? So there's no way that he sent you there to go into a field of 10,000 trees that fell and tell you to go through there and examine all of them and look under them. That's silly. It's silly that Jack would have spent 25 days if he really knew to solve. So anyway, I'll show that in the next video. Peace.